Hi, welcome back to our Pulsion Tech Talk series where we discuss key topics and trends that affect our industry. I'm sat here with John McGuire, our MD and founder, and we're going to talk about the issues of requirements gathering and our new product Requiment. Would you like to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, so my name is John McGuire. I'm a director of Pulsion Technology. We are involved in software development, have been for the last 25 years. And for us, requirements is something that we have seen as a driver of project success and also a driver of project failure if not done properly. So it's an area that we feel very passionate about.
For those who may not be fully aware, do you want to tell us about the two main software methodologies?
Yeah, so there's two main methodologies that are used within the industry. The oldest one is waterfall, which is basically where you gather requirements. You then design a system, you implement it, test it, and then go into a maintenance cycle. This methodology was copied, I suppose, from other engineering disciplines, things like construction, things like mechanical, electrical engineering, but it didn't work too well for software because of the amount of change within software, lack of good specification sometimes, possibly just the maturity of the industry. So people proposed a more agile methodology where the idea is that the idea is supposed to be that you still gather requirements, you still gather some requirements, but then you tend to iterate through the implementation, maybe design and implementation cycle of a project. And the idea behind that is that you can deliver software in shorter bursts and see things actually getting delivered. The big problem with waterfall in the past was that waterfall took a long time for customers to see things, and then the customer would have a problem with what they actually saw and would need changes. So there's a lot of change in waterfall. So agile is probably the more modern, more used. Waterfall is an old methodology, perhaps still used in some parts of the industry, but not in all parts.
I know you've done some research to do with projects overrunning, so do you want to elaborate on that a bit for me?
Yeah, so I mean, we did a bit of research on various reports, etc., throughout the industry. We found various really interesting stats. One was that 70% of digital transformation projects failed, which was a shocking amount. I think that report was maybe Boston Consulting Group, and also I think McKinsey produced a report that produced similar type stats. So it's a terrible start if you're about to embark on a digital transformation project. The thought that 70% you've got 70% chance of failure is not so good. There are also other reports as well by a group called the Standish Group, who have said that agile is something like 42% successful at producing a result which is a non-failure, and waterfall is 18%. So we can only assume that somewhere between 18 and 42% sits maybe 30% success rate for projects, which kind of aligns with what Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey have said about digital transformation projects. So I think no matter what stats you look at, and you can always interpret stats in different ways, there's a real problem within the industry, software industry, with failure to deliver projects successfully on time and to budget.
Are you able to tell me about some of the experience you've had working like Pulsion and some of the overruns that have occurred there?
Yeah, but we've seen we've seen a few overruns generally in terms of, so we do a lot of kind of fixed price projects and at times, and we have found that for those projects that if the requirements aren't very well defined, we're getting overruns. People using agile, they're pricing a software project for budgetary purposes at the beginning of the project, but they're pricing it based on very loose requirements. And what's happening is that when they get into the project, more detail comes out, things take longer than estimated, things cost more than estimated, which is never a great thing. So we've seen problems whereby, because of poor requirements, we've had projects where the overrun or the cost has been significant, and this is not something to do solely with our company. The industry average seems to be that there's at least a 33% overrun on the average project. Some projects can overrun by 200%. In fact, 1 in 6. I think there are reports out there that show 1 in 6 can overrun by 200%. Yet again, shocking figures. The causes of those, certainly from our experience of looking at projects internally, but also we do some consulting where we look at projects externally. The problem's really been down to requirements capture in a lot of cases, or sometimes things to do with technology, etc. But in our experience, we've certainly found a lot of problems in software requirements and misuse of agile, where agile is perceived to be a methodology where you don't need any requirements up front. You just kind of start very broad single page requirement for the system, and you just start developing it from there, which is great if you've got unlimited budget or at least mostly a blank checkbook or at least a big pot of money. But if you want good budgets, you want to know when things are going to be delivered, then certainly our experience with some of the successful and less successful projects that we've been involved in is requirements are a huge deal. So I would say that some of our biggest problems with projects have been with requirements and failure to properly define what a system is.
So this leads us on to our new product, Requiment. So do you want to tell me a bit about that?
So we were, I suppose, frankly, kind of a bit fed up with requirements capture and us missing requirements within the company, or clients missing requirements. So we thought it'd be a good idea to start to develop internally a tool that would kind of talk us through the requirements process. It would ask structured questions in order for us to get the right answers that were required to properly define the system, properly estimate the system, and also to potentially produce wireframes for a system. Because what we find with clients is the clients don't properly specify a system, or don't even properly read requirement specs. So being able to look at prototypes, being able to look at wireframes, even if they're very rudimentary, sometimes allows clients to ask more questions and give more agreement to what a system should do. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do when you're in a discovery phase for a project. You have somebody who wants a system, be it an internal stakeholder or an external customer, and they want a system. The software developers want to deliver a system, but you have to get some common ground to agree on what the system is actually doing. So we just needed a faster way, a more accurate way of doing that discovery and producing wireframes and getting everybody on the same page with the system. So we couldn't find anything out there, so we thought we'd start developing something ourselves to do this. It's basically to make things a bit more structured.
So what are some of the main features of Requiment?
Well, in terms of Requiment, how Requiment works is it starts to look at what type of system you're building, whether it's a system that has users. It then asks you things like, do you have what type of users do you have? Because it's an area that we actually see people forget about. So you're saying, do you have admin users? Do you have office users? Do you, if you have users within your system, do you have anonymous kind of customers on your website who might later sign up to be particular, signed up customers for you. So we have different types of users within the system that Requiment will gather. Then we start looking at entities within the system. So we start to tease out. It's kind of like almost really structured in the process that a business analyst would go through. We try to say, right, what are all the entities and what can you do with them? So somebody might say, well, we have a client within a system and we save a client. So you're saying, okay, so are we going to, Requiment will then say, okay, you have a client. What does a client look like? what sort of data we're storing on the client. Is that there's the title, their forename, surname, is the client a company, is the client a person? And then we ask for the actions that you can do on that entity, perform on that entity. So basically what we're saying there is that, do you create a client? Yes, you do. Who can create it? Well, the admin user and an office user can create a client. And we ask questions on each of those different actions. So we say, who can create a client? Who can update a client? Who can delete a client? Who can do this? And we find that these are a lot of the things that actually get missed. We ask about validation on these things, which is quite detailed information. But the cost of software and the time it's going to take to do the estimates, the budgeting of software, is very much based on the detail. There's some studies it's called the cone of uncertainty, where basically the less detailed your requirements are, the more variability there is in the actual estimates and budget for a piece of software. And over time, as you learn more about a piece of software, the cone narrows towards what the actual cost of the software is going to be. So for us, what we try to do with Requiment is gather as much detail as possible. So that's why we ask about users. That's why we ask about entities. We'll then ask things like performance, usability, the security requirements for the system. These are all things that get missed when people are just given to a pseudo-agile kind of type of development where they don't actually gather that type of information. So, and what Requiment will then do is it will then produce a requirements document for you. It will produce a document for everything that you have recorded. So it's things like what the users are, what type of logins, if you have logins for users, is it multi-factor authentication, a lot of these quite detailed questions. So it gives you, at least, even if it doesn't cover everything that you might have in your system, and we hope it would, but we output it to a Word document, so you can then take that and edit it. You can cut and paste it into your own requirements format if you want. We also produce wireframes. As I said before, we find that wireframes allow people to picture what the system uses. So literally within a few seconds of defining an entity, you can then see what, for example, the create screen might look like, at least the data on it. You can see what the list screen or search screen might look like for that particular piece of software that you're developing. So we find that pretty useful. And I suppose those are the main features of Requiment.
What are some of the main use cases for Requiment?
So in terms of use cases, I mean, for us, it's software requirements capture, really for anybody who's involved within that. And a lot of people within Agile might say, well, we gather those requirements as we go along in Agile, and some people do that, and that's fine. But it's very difficult to estimate when that project is going to finish if you don't have some requirements. So most people have some sort of requirements. All that Requiment's doing is actually for people that are business analysts, that are perhaps software developers who are involved in requirements capture. This is really about defining in more detail and getting the discovery phase done more quickly. So in terms of use cases, you'll see it just used in general software development. People are developing enterprise systems, cloud systems, mobile systems, etc. So we hope it's general enough to cover most scenarios. But of course, we're putting out there as a free beta to try and gather more information.
So do you think it will evolve over time, Requiment?
Yeah, that's very much the plan. This is the 0.1 version of the system. The feedback internally has been great. We use the tool internally for improving our requirements. I don't think there's any tool out there that is fully evolved, because technology is moving forward. So for us, we're continually evolving it. We're looking at other things that the tool can do, because once you have structured requirements, one of the big problems with requirements gathering, requirements management, is sometimes those are not structured. They're just lists of requirements. So it's very difficult to structure those. We think with Requiment, by structuring requirements, and trying to have a very structured method of gathering them, that we can do some quite interesting things off the back of those requirements. So things like estimation, etc. Because they're structured, we think we can estimate a bit better against those, and we think we can automate estimation a bit better. So those are areas that we're beginning to experiment. So it's literally a moving product, like all products.
So what are your hopes for Requiment?
For me, I think we have a real problem within the industry. Everybody within a company probably thinks that they see projects fail, because I know a lot of people within software have been working in software for over 35 years professionally. So I know a lot of people, everybody has problems. I don't know anybody who says that they're delivering software for every project on time and to budget is probably a salesperson and not a software professional. It really doesn't seem to happen in the industry. It's not just my view. The fact that we did some research into this and researched that the 70% project digital transformation projects fail, the fact that only 42% of agile projects are successful, these are all shocking statistics. So I would hope that we could, with Requiment, we could at least contribute to the success of not only our own projects, but also projects for other companies as well. So I'd hope that at least by having, whether it's our product or other other things that people want to do themselves, I'd hope that at least we open up the conversation about requirements, because I feel it's a really undervalued part of the software development process. And yet again, some stats here: 70% of projects that fail, 70% of the ones that fail, and remember there's a lot that in inverted commas fail, 70% of those are due to requirements, poor requirements, not enough requirements, the wrong requirements being gathered. So it costs companies, it costs the economy, it costs billions. We have a skill shortage. At the minute, a lot of the overruns on projects are due to the fact that an overrun can be looked at in a couple of different ways. It's either you got the estimate right and you were just slow in delivering against that estimate, or you got the estimate wrong. Either way, most of those are usually based on not truly understanding the requirements of the system you were going to build. So when you actually look at overruns, sometimes you have systems that are overrunning by 33% on average. That's the industry standard. If you look at that, I think there are roughly about maybe 400,000, depending on where you Google, maybe about 400,000 software developers in the UK. So if you're overrunning by 33%, then that means that 1 in 4 software developers is working on something that was never planned at the start of a project. They're working on overruns. And if you look back, the reason for that is mostly requirements. So that's why when we looked internally at our processes, requirements was the obvious one to actually look at developing a tool for. So we're kind of hoping that by developing a tool, at least we open up some sort of conversation, we get people trying it, and we see hopefully the product's successful, but we just see where that goes. But I certainly think whether our product is a product for clients or not, it's something that people have to address. So hopefully we're starting a conversation.
Thank you for taking the time and for sitting with me. Thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment and we'll get back to you, and look out for more Pulsion Tech Talks. Thanks for watching.